Hello and welcome back friends to another video. So this time I'm going to be talking about how to build your characters. And to build good characters, of course, it's going to be hard and it's going to take you some time, but I'm going to share with you guys my experience on how I build my characters. But before I get in, if you guys are enjoying my gameplays, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe as well. It really helps a lot, and as always, I appreciate you guys for all the love and support. And of course, if you guys have any thoughts and feedback on how to build characters or just on my content in general, feel free to leave them down in the comments and I will look through them. So with that, let's get into the video. Okay, so how do I build my characters? Well, first, before you do any building, you have to play with the character and get a feel for their kit, as in their normal attack. What does their elemental skill do? And what does their elemental burst do? As well as look at some of their passive skills. And the more you play with their character, you will feel and recognize which one of their talents is worth prioritizing. Some characters, it's the skills that are more important. Other characters, it's the burst. And then there are a few characters where the normal attack is more important. And you will know all of that by how you use them and how you play with them. And with where Genshin is at right now, the good news is that they will tell you which talent to prioritize and which artifacts they recommend. So you kind of already have that job done for you. But some people may ask, or perhaps some beginners may say, why do I have to go with what they say? Why can't I just build it on my own? And my answer to that is sure, you can build it on your own. And to be honest, I've seen some really great builds that people have done that's not what the game recommends. DPS Barbara is a very great, well known example out there. Nothing is perfect, but the game is generally correct on the recommended build for the purpose that the character serves for the team. So, what do I mean by all of that? Let's go through a few characters. So Kokomi, for example, she's a healer, and from her talents and bursts, you can see that they scale based on her HP. So if we look at her artifacts, I will have a lot of HP put on her, like HP Sands, HP Goblet, Circlet, healing bonus. That's always a good one to have on the healers, even though you can kind of debate to put more HP, but I'm going for healing bonus. And this is Yao Yao, her skill and burst. They both scale from HP, so we're looking at the artifacts. I'm putting all these HP on her as well with the healing bonus circlet. So that's another healer for you guys. And then Mavuika, obviously she's a DPS, so you gotta put that attack, crit rate, crit damage, all of that on her and as much as possible. Her biggest damage, of course, comes from her burst, but her skill is also really good. And this is Navia. If you guys have her, you know she's like one of the nuke DPS, they call it. And that damage mainly comes from her skill. So if you can prioritize that skill, and you can see that the game even recommends that. It's a DPS, so attack, crit rate, crit damage on her. That's an automatic if it's a DPS. And Xingqiu, I'd say he's a support, and that support mainly comes from his elemental burst. But to get his elemental burst, you want to make sure you have as much of that elemental recharge or ER as possible. I can say that normally you will put an ER Sands on him, but in my case, I actually put an attack Sands on him because I already have a ton of ER from the substats of these other artifacts, and then I also have an ER weapon on him. So that's the explanation behind that. But generally, I recommend an ER Sands. Now, Layla, she's an amazing shield support, and as you guys can see, her shield scales off of her HP. So, of course, that means that we gotta have as much HP on her as we can. So, we're going all out HP there. So, Layla, pretty easy build. Now, Xiangling, she's a classic character, of course. She's a support slash buff, I'd say, because if you do have her on C6, she kind of increases the pyro damage bonus. So that's kind of the buff part. And of course, the support mainly comes from her elemental burst. So again, putting ER would be best for that. And yes, you do put pyro damage bonus for the goblet and the crit rate for a circlet, but I really don't think they play as much of a role as the ER. But ER substats for sure. Now Benny, I can't say too much about him because I just don't use him enough. But what I do know is that he is a support. He can buff the pyro damage bonus as well, and he's also a healer. And all of that comes from his elemental burst, which means more ER, and then you probably want some HP on him as well to get that healing going. For my viewers that are an expert at using Benny, feel free to leave your thoughts down in the comments. And Escoffier, she's like a buff. She buffs your Hydro and Cryo characters, and all that mainly comes from her skill and burst. And if you have her, you will know that her skill sticks around and her burst sticks around for a little bit, which means she's an off field character. So putting the golden trout, that's basically for an off field character. Furina, again, off field character. All the damage mainly comes from her skill with the puppets. So that's pretty much the main use there. And she's like an off field sub DPS that scales from her HP. So we're putting these HP pieces and the crit damage and crit rate on her. And let's do one more. Mualani, she's a nuke DPS that scales from her HP. So her priority talent is the skill, even though her burst is like really, really good. Now her artifacts, I'm putting HP on her, hydro damage bonus, and crit damage. So yeah, in these cases where their damage scales off of some stats, go with some of that stat as well. On top of the crit rate, crit damage, and the elemental damage. And yeah, that's the little guide for you guys on how to build your characters. I really hope it helped and that you guys enjoyed this. And of course, if you guys know more about the characters, which I'm pretty sure a good amount of you know the characters more than I do, feel free to leave it in the comments and share it with everyone. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and sticking around, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.